We're back again to touch on an epic card. It's Triple G versus Canelo, number 3. But we're going to go through the whole card, and that's because this is rare in boxing. You're getting true value for a pay-per-view boxing event. Please appreciate that when it happens. You can buy this on DAZN. I highly recommend you do. We put a lot of time and effort into this show, so please give me the thumbs up. Please give me the subscribe button if you haven't already and you're watching these. And possibly the most important of all, if you know a friend, a family member, maybe even a crazy ex-girlfriend, right? In all seriousness, you have somebody you know and they enjoy combat sports, especially boxing, please refer them to this podcast. I am sure they'd love it. The first fight that we're going to touch on this very good card is Ammo Williams versus Kyron Conway. Kyron Conway, basically, he's an alright fighter. Not fought a lot. I believe his record's something like 18-2. I don't have it right in front of me, but I did look this up earlier. And first off, I've seen the last 2 Ammo Williams fights in a row. I'd heard about the guy, and I personally watched the last 2 in a row. He's a vicious knockout puncher. He's a young guy in his prime. He is everything you want to see as an up-and-comer in boxing so far, yet to really be tested, although he has fought a guy who was, I believe, 32-14 at the time, and got him out of there with a vicious KO as well. So Ammo Williams, a true talent in boxing, we're definitely picking him. Funny thing here is that this is not what I'd consider a true test yet for Ammo Williams in his, career just starting off, but odds makers most likely will. I'm betting, and I haven't seen odds for this fight yet, but I'm betting that Ammo Williams will be your favorite, but not by a long shot. Good to throw in a parlay, because he's still young and up and coming, but I see a lot of potential in Ammo Williams. The next fight that we're going to touch on, Gabriel King Rosado, and as we refer to him on this podcast, the Puerto Rican Rocky. We touched on his career on the last Unknown to Casuals episode. Go and check that out if you haven't seen it already, because those are great to kind of wrap up someone's career, what they've been through, what they do well. That's going to be more your place for it. But in short, Gabriel Rosado has an absolutely fantastic resume. Not in the sense that he's won every fight, because he's about half and half as a fighter. Or a 50-50 fighter, as they call it, even though you have more wins than not. I believe his record was something like 30-something, 35, 33 or something, and 15, or 25 and 15, 26 and 15. Not a fantastic record, but anyways, that's because he's faced the best names in boxing. He's a guy that is an old-style boxer, a true war horse in a brutal business of boxing, where he is willing to always take the challenge, and even if he lost, then comes back, fights another hard fight, and loses again. He never, ever, ever is satisfied with taking a step backwards. He only wants good, recognizable names, so when he gets wins, they're highly impressive. He's usually the underdog going into fights. This fight will be no different. So in short, I will tell you, Ali Akhmedov has not fought a lot of people, so this is an interesting fight. Gabriel Rosado is your, however you like the term, so-called gatekeeper. He's a great version of what people think of that to be. As far as if you want a title shot, if you want to prove you're ready for the top 5 in the division, you take a Gabriel Rosado fight and beat him, you have proven yourself to be in that kind of zone. And on the contrary, for Gabriel Rosado, always fighting elite competition, even with a lot of losses on his record, he has some good wins in there as well, and all of them are underdog performances. This could be no different. One thing I've noticed about this fight is that the layoff times, I believe Gabriel Rosado, since the Sugar Shane Mosley fight, was something along the lines of 100 days or 160 days. So that would be about half of a year. Um, he's a pretty active fighter, especially for being older and far along into his career. On the other hand, Ali Akhmedov is going on almost a year from being in the ring, even though he's younger, even though he's starting off in his career and is yet to progress to fighting the best of the division. Gabriel Rosado is an interesting character because he is a true test for anybody, especially young up and comers. We saw what he did to Bektamir Melikuziev, Bek the Bully. I watched that Daniel Jacobs fight and really thought that he actually won that fight. This will be good. It should be no surprise that we're going for Gabriel Rosado at this point. But that's what I want. And as far as gambling picks go, I gave you the Ammo Williams one is solid. If you're going to put together a parlay, unfortunately, because I can differentiate, unlike a lot of boxing fans, which fighter I like better personally as a fan and which fighter I actually think will win, they're not always the same thing. And unfortunately, at this point, I think although Gabriel Rosado is a tough test, he doesn't get knocked out like that. He tends to go the distance. He is a great fighter. He is a little older. Of all these performances where it's okay to lose because you're fighting elite competition, the Sugar Shane Mosley Jr. loss did not look great. He didn't look his best at all for that. And I'm wondering if sadly we'll see a decline of the Puerto Rican Rocky, starting to take shape here. And on the other hand, Akhmedov is still young enough, shows some promise, got a good right hand on him, and will be the favorite. Again, I haven't seen odds yet. I do these pretty early for you guys, but he will be a favorite for sure in that fight. The next fight that we're gonna touch on is Bam Rodriguez versus Israel Gonzalez. So Gonzalez a good fighter. Gonzalez has some losses. His record standing at 28-4-1. One of those losses came to the legendary Chocolatito, so he has fought good competition. By the way, he handedly lost that fight, but he went all 12 with an absolute killer in Roman Gonzalez Chocolatito. And so he's a good challenge. But this is quick and simple. Bam Rodriguez is an absolute talent in boxing. I'm going to big him up as far as to say that when you talk about the Jaron Ennises of the world, and the Virgil Ortizes of the world and things like that, Bam Rodriguez is literally that guy. Bam Rodriguez is literally the next big thing in boxing. Out of these young amateurs that are all coming up. That is including Jaron Ennis, who will be great. I see a lot of potential for Bam Rodriguez. One of the youngest champions there was, and he holds the WBC belt, which is still a prestigious belt in a sport that has too many and is creating secondaries for each one of them. He has a meaningful belt. He came off of a performance of not only beating, but stopping Sarista Kassoy Rungvisai, which is an incredible win to have. And the way that he did it was an absolute dispatching of the man, and stopping him. That's a guy who beat Chocolatito in the past and knocked him out. That's a powerful puncher. That's a veteran boxer. That's a super tough guy with a fucking beard on him as well. And Bam Rodriguez stopped Rungvisai. So I expect that Bam Rodriguez will do fantastic things in this fight, let alone, the entirety of his career, as he is a very young man in the sport of boxing. And the main event. This is what we all came for, is it not? Triple G versus Canelo, number 3. This is the trilogy bout. A lot of people still working up some excitement for this fight. I'll tell you, I'm excited because I'm watching it with some friends. We'll be at the beach. I'm excited because this card is very good and has a lot of good names on it, good value for your money. Um, I am certainly going to watch the fight, um, but I think that handedly we see a Canelo victory. I'm going to take an approach, surprisingly enough, with the hat I'm wearing, that I'm really going to give you an unbiased pick here. Okay? Just like I did talking about the Rosado Akhmedov fight. That was an unbiased pick. This will be as well, and I truly believe that. I think that the media has worked this up, and Canelo one time in an interview saying, "Yeah, it's a bit personal." He said I was on steroids or whatever. Has worked this. There's bad blood. I think there's more bad blood between the fans of these fighters than there actually is between the fighters fighting in the ring. That's for one. So I think it's important to first appease both sides and kind of prove an unbiased point that I have here towards this fight and the fighters. We're going to start off with appeasing the Triple G fans, right? And giving you for what my take is, because it can be blends of both is what I usually find. But boxing, fandom is kind of a toxic place to be a lot of times, so to speak. So I want to really meet you guys in the middle, as we try to do here on this show. For Gennady Golovkin, Triple G, for those fans, these are my bullet points to give you to kind of appease you. First off, yes, he should have won the first fight. He beat Canelo in the first fight. Okay? Two, the jab worked before. The jab will be effective against Canelo again, even in this fight, even with the other things that I'm going to say about it. And number three, yes, it took more balls for Triple G to take this fight than it was for Canelo to take this fight at the stages they are at in their career at this point. And for the Canelo fans, yes, I thought he lost the first fight, but also I am a Canelo fan, as I am a Triple G fan. You do not need to pick sides in such a manner. You can root for somebody to win in a good faith sort of way. And though I thought that he lost the first fight, it was a close enough fight. I did think it was a bit of a robbery that you could so much as call the fight a draw. That's not to say, because again, they're not always the same things. That doesn't mean as well that Canelo couldn't win a round in there. It was a close enough fight. I believe that I had an 8-4 for that first fight. But yeah, a close enough fight. He did have success with the counters in that fight. He backed up, he moved, he used his head movement. He did actually better in that fight than in the second fight at getting away from the jab, which was kind of new for Canelo. Also, yeah, I do believe Canelo won the second fight. And that fight was close enough, but in my opinion, Canelo did enough to win that second fight. And the third point, Canelo, I believe, wins this fight. How about Canelo may stop Triple G in this fight? That's another fair point. Canelo gets hit with the jab, okay? So it's hard. It's hard to it's not hard. I'm sorry, to imagine. Even without watching, knowing that Canelo lost to one of the best jabbers in the game, I thought, in their first fight. In the second fight, I actually thought he got hit with the jab more, but he actually, although he was getting hit a lot more, he wasn't as defensively sound as he tried to be in the first fight, where I believe he went into that knowing, and because he does have good coaches, and he is very trainable, and you can tell that. He's a boxer that listens to his coach and follows a strict game plan, and that is not something that every single boxer actually does, even though it's kind of recommended. That's a strength that Canelo has. So I believe he knew and probably was told by his trainers, you're a little susceptible to the jab sometimes, but you can overpower opponents. You are very good at countering, so you get opponents out of there in fights. But you give up rounds to the jab, and Triple G's got a fucking chin of steel on him, and Triple G is one of the best jabbers in boxing. He's got one of the best jabs. This at least right before the first fight. I believe he heard this, and I believe he took on this more defensive head movement, not throwing as many punches, but being a little more defensively sound than he had been previously in fights, and from fights after that, to be honest. In that first fight, thinking this will be our route to victory. It didn't work for him. He was gifted on a draw, and instead of letting that get to him, completely switched the game plan. Look, we got a fucking chin on us too. And so let's walk down Triple G. If we have to eat some of the jab, unfortunately, that's what we got to do. I mean, I guess this is really the overall of what I think of the fight. So in this second fight, he ate the jab even more, I thought. And he lost a lot of those later rounds. But he definitely bagged a lot of those early rounds. And he isn't even that much of a jabber. He's more of a counter. He's more of a body puncher, Canelo is. And he was able to use that to full effect. And maybe found that even though I'm getting hit with the jab, when I'm walking this guy down and he's throwing it, off of his back, going off his back foot, it's not as strong. He's having to take steps backwards. We'll take some of the power off of these things. And because we're always staying close to him, we can work the body, which Canelo did a lot in that second fight. And so I thought he did win the second fight, even though it was very close. And the ending of that fight was more Triple G really showing his grit and taking a lot of those later rounds, at least the last three. This fight, first off, yeah, and also this is back to appease the Triple G fans. I agree that I think Canelo waited him out a long time. I mean, it's almost kind of obvious that he did, right? So, then we got the first fight, and then we got this second fight where I thought he did better, and I thought he deservingly actually won that fight, even though it was close enough, even in the second. Now we're at a point where this is, almost 4 years? This is 4 years past the point of that second fight. 4 years. And in that second fight, I just told you I thought we saw a better version of Canelo, who is still young enough. And Triple G still gave a good effort then and was good then, but I thought he lost. And since then has gone on to have suspicious performances. Triple G has looked slower, looked older. The Derevyanchenko fight, I thought Derevyanchenko beat Triple G. And then we go on to Triple G's last fight with Ryota Murata, and I thought that Murata almost just kind of he really had a fall from grace there. I thought a lot of those rounds Murata was bagging up against Triple G. I saw him, hurting Triple G to an extent, as much as any punch will hurt a bit, really actually hurting him a bit, going to the body. Now, who's one of the best body punchers? But one of them. Who's one of the best, just that, body punches? Ripping that left to the liver, even sometimes doubling up on it, is Canelo. Canelo's there for that. That is a strength that he has. He has weaknesses, but that's a strength of his. And Triple G's older, looks slower. Now, he was able to get Murata out of there eventually, but he lost a lot of those rounds, and he looked like he was getting ripped to the body quite easily by a lesser body puncher, that certainly, than what Canelo Alvarez is. Canelo Alvarez coming off the Dimitri Bivol loss. He outboxed him. Dimitri Bivol did outbox Canelo. It didn't hurt him that he's just not bigger. So when you talk about bigger, people think about, that just means the power, but he got outboxed. He did get outboxed, but what comes with bigger isn't just power. An all-around bigger man in a bigger weight class also carries some reach on him. Quite easy to jab a guy that gets hit with it, that's a little bit known for getting hit with the jab, especially with all of that reach. Kind of easy to paw around at a guy's guard or rip his guard down when you got all that reach on you. So it's not all about power. Being a bigger man can help you in different ways like that. And Dimitri Bivol is a fantastic boxer. So this point isn't to say that, if it was down a weight class, he would have lost. That's nothing like that. It's just throwing some things out there that I believe are true. So when you talk about Now he lost his last fight. He doesn't belong in that weight class. That's just a point that I have to make there. I don't think Canelo belongs in that weight class at 175 pounds. Uh, we're back down at 168. Triple G has fought at 165 before catch weight. Triple G more of a lower weight guy, but when you're getting older, it's easier to make the weight and not completely drain yourself. It's almost better for older guys to kind of go up in weight. That's normal for a boxing career. You know, as you're getting older, uh, and growing into your man strength more, even as a young man, it's normal to move up weight classes. Uh, for Triple G, he's getting older. I don't think this hurts him to move up the weight class. What I think hurts him is he looked more than being old or oh he's old. This is more in depth than that. Let's just go this. If I had to bullet point the most important thing, he looks slow. He looks very slow now. He looks a lot slower. His strength was the jab. And yes, he's a power puncher. I'm sure he still hits hard. But look at the loss that Canelo just had to Dimitri Bivol, where he handedly lost that fight. Canelo may have won at best 2 rounds in that entire 12-round fight, man. And with a way bigger guy in Dimitri Bivol. And look at the way that he was able to, eat those punches and losing the rounds handedly, losing the fight. But look at how he's fought Triple G twice before, and he's gotten hit flush a lot with the jab, but sometimes with some real good uppercuts and hooks as well. Canelo's got a chin on him, so I'm sure Triple G's power is still a factor here. Even though he's older, the power is the last thing to leave you in your age. Uh, what I really think will be a factor is him being slower, because and so I just think that we see a weathered version of Triple G here, as we just already saw in the last fight. And though Canelo lost his last fight, he's back at a weight class that actually suits him, I believe, for whatever my opinion's worth on this. And he's motivated coming off of a loss. And at first he talked about rematching Bivol, and people that don't have a brain in their head were like, yeah, he'll get him this. I thought that was a horrible idea. That fight didn't look very competitive just from a boxing point of view. And then also I just think, don't fuck around at that weight class. You're plenty good enough down here. So I just think that this fight is made for Canelo, being that he's back down at his natural weight class, being that he's motivated coming off of that loss, being that, arguably Canelo, at least whether he's coming out of it or he's still completely in it, he's right around his prime. And Triple G looks slower in his last fight. There is no argument to make that Triple G is anywhere near his prime anymore. And although he's got a good jab, you know what makes a good jab? Not just being precise, not just knowing the technique of how to throw it and when to throw it, but literally the jab, not a power punch, a controlling punch, relies on the speed of it all. So we're seeing a slower Triple G in there against a guy way closer in and around his prime in Canelo, who did a lot better already in the second fight. Literally, these fights I think will look like just a progression from, hey, he should have lost, and how the fuck did they give him a draw, to that's a close fight, but I could see him winning that one in to possibly stopping Triple G. I really think that it's possible that for the first time in Triple G's career, he'll get stopped. I also think that a lot of good fight, you can just fight in different ways. Sometimes there's right and wrong, there's do's and don'ts, and sometimes things are up to preference and characteristics of the individual fighter. And so where some people shouldn't be focused about stopping someone and should just focus on doing the job, and because that kind of person needs to stick to a game plan, and that kind of fighter, needs to listen to his coach and just win the fight, and that kind of fighter may be young and shouldn't take unnecessary risks. That would be the case with that. With Canelo, I believe he's a veteran enough fighter, and he is very trainable, already listens to his coach a lot, who will teach him just the basis of a general game plan that he'll want him to stick to. I believe that with Canelo, legacy and belts and things like this are what matters to him. And I think that not just sealing the deal here with a win in general, which will be plenty good enough for him, I think that whether he's able to do it or not, I really get a feeling that in his head, um, he puts it a little bit out of an importance of how good would it look if I stop him, and I'm the first person that's ever stopped him before, and I think that we could see that playing out. And I hope you enjoyed the takes. Until next time, loyal fight fans, stay loyal, enjoy the fights. We'll give you some more shorts and fun little content from the beach as well. You already know what's up. We'll see you next time.